Tyler, Luke, good to see you guys. I'm assuming that you both have Disney Plus at this point,
Yep.
Yeah.
since it's been hours of being available now. And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
yeah. All right. So, Tyler, you've got to tell me, what are some of the great titles that you've got on your list right now?
Oh man, let's see. I got Kim Possible. I got the Disney Channel original series Smart Guy. Yeah. Girl Meets World. I have five different Winnie the Pooh titles, and also the Disney Channel original movie Pixel Perfect.
Follow-up question, and how old are you?
I am 27. I will self-destruct.
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah.
All right, Luke. What titles do you have on your watch list?
Well, there's live action Lady and the Tramp. Um, and yeah, and then there's also Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier.
Okay.
Um, and let's see, Timon and Pumbaa, a TV show. And yeah, so those are the main ones I'm looking forward to.
All right. And how old are you?
I am 18. I will self-destruct.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that's appropriate.
Probably. So Nathan, how about you? What's on your list that you're looking forward to?
I have Disney Plus, and I'm committing myself to doing an episode by episode review of The Mandalorian on my podcast. I will self-destruct. Hello and welcome to Ignore the Bell. My name is Nathan.
I'm Tyler.
I'm Luke.
And in case you did not know, that was my introduction to say that we are going to be doing an episode by episode review of The Mandalorian. So a little bit of an outline of what this is going to look like for the channel. So, and the release schedule with The Mandalorian is a little bit different than what you might have expected. I know that it threw off a bunch of people. We were aware of it, but people who are not paying close attention, I know a lot of people expected that all of the episodes would just be immediately available in the Netflix model. But this is more of a traditional broadcast release schedule where they're going to be released weekly, except for the difference between episodes 1 and 2, because episode 2 comes out on Friday. And then from this point forward, they'll be released each Friday. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. And do we know how many episodes we're getting in this season?
I'm not too sure. Actually, I cannot check, but I'm pretty sure there's like 11 or 12.
Okay.
Maybe.
So for however long this is going to go on for, then the plan is that we're going to do an episode review of it on the channel. And we'll release that hopefully the day of, later in the day, each Friday, or on the following, like the next day on Saturday. And these are all going to be bonus podcasts. That there's still going to be other content on the channel because I refuse to let Ignore the Bell become just a Star Wars discussion. That is not happening. So there will still be regular Ignore the Bell episodes on Mondays at 4 o'clock. And then these are just going to be bonus ones. And as far as audio-only downloads, the audio-only downloads of the Mandalorian reviews, those will be available immediately. The ones for like the back episodes, the back catalog of Ignore the Bell, those audio-only downloads are going to be behind. They're going to be almost a year behind, and they're just going to get released on a weekly schedule. But that's basically what's happening. And so, yeah, we're going to get into a discussion of episode 1 of The Mandalorian. Before we do that, then we do have a sponsor for today.
Awesome.
So our sponsor, I just need to look at the ad copy again. Just give me a second here. Right. It is from the Council to Raise Awareness About Criminal Pervert Yoda Creatures. Now, in case you are unaware, folks, you need to learn. If you ever see a 50-year-old Yoda creature, beware. They are lascivious, rapacious creatures who will kill you and everyone you love. They are absolute criminal monsters. They clearly are some of the most disgusting things you're ever going to see. There's nothing cute and cuddly. There's nothing that's merchandisable about these things. None of that. These are evil, wicked monsters. And if you see one, report one immediately to allow the good Mandalorian folks to come and arrest that thing thing as good bounty hunters and restore a little bit of peace to the galaxy. I'm so sorry that we even need to have a council like this. These awful things are the scourge of the galaxy, and I would love to see them be eradicated. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I'm happier by them able to get the word out for them to all of our subscribers and followers. But okay, wait. So we're not going to be talking about the Disney Channel original movie Pixel Perfect?
Um, we can talk about stuff.
I'm
That's
on the show. We're
fine.
talking Star Wars.
Yeah, no, we're going to talk about the Mandalorian in this, but now that Disney Plus is a thing and that we've all got a subscription, that I'm sure we're going to have tons of other content that we can get to, and I am clearly so excited about this. All right, folks, we're going to save all of this for the other side of the discussion, so I hope you enjoy.
Oh man, I wish this discussion could go on forever.
Ignore the bell. We're gonna keep going, people.
All right, so we are doing a review / discussion of The Mandalorian Episode 1, so Season 1, Episode 1 of The Mandalorian, which is a Star Wars original series on Disney+. It was just released today on November 12th, 2019. And does this one have, like, is there an episode title? I wasn't even paying attention to
It's
it.
Chapter 1. That's all they called
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I was a little disappointed, but that's okay.
Well, I think that, like, and not to say this about The Mandalorian, but I think in general with Disney Plus so far, there's a lot of disappointment.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because, I mean, with all the technical issues that they've had, and, you know, whatever else, I know people are going to complain about everything, but I was surprised that Disney did not seamlessly roll this thing out. I was sure they would.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was their statement was very informative that they said like this surpassed our wildest expectations. Like that's essentially what their statement said.
Disney's all about wild expectations.
I know.
Like,
Apparently everybody in the entire world signed up for this thing and they only thought like 75% were.
Like
were going
Walt
to.
Disney looked at Florida and he's like, yeah, I'm going to have the entire middle section of Florida and people will come here. And people are like, this swampland? And he's like, I've got a vision. And then with Disney Plus, like, I'm surprised they weren't prepared for 12 billion people. And then it's just like, but Disney, there's only 7 billion. And it's just like, it doesn't matter.
Right.
We're gonna get extraterrestrials signing up for this thing.
That's so good at it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's like Disney's entire like mantra.
That
No.
should be the marketing campaign for it.
Right. You
So,
can
yeah,
get time
12
travelers
billion people.
involved. I wanted to be there on day one.
I'm pretty sure if that shows up on one of their, you know, like accounting sheets or something like that, subscribers like 12 billion, then you know they're gonna get looked into by the SEC pretty quickly. You know, like misleading the shareholders, fraud, all
Somehow they got everyone to sign up for it twice.
twice. That's right. I need 2 accounts just in case. All right. So, what did you guys think of the episode? Let's go with you, Luke. What are your first impressions of this?
I thought it was good, not great. Like some of the stuff I was really impressed by, like the tone, how it was so Western, and I really liked that because it felt really fitting. But then I don't know, I just wasn't as excited about it as it was going as I thought I was going to be, which I think it will obviously pick up in hopefully episode 2, but if not, then future episodes. But like, so I thought it was good, a good start, but not an amazing one.
Yeah, I agree that, and I was surprised by the fact that I thought what was going to happen is they were going to come out guns a-blazing with episode 1 in terms of action and intensity, and instead they did not do that, which was really surprising. I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing, but it really surprised me because that just does not seem like basically the structure to most shows, and especially high concept shows like this that are appealing to a broad audience. They typically have got the very best episodes at the beginning, and then you've got that lull in the middle, and then you've got really good ones at the end. And they didn't bury the slow episodes, unless if that's the most exciting episode we're going to get until the finale, then this is not going to be much of an action show.
Yeah.
Right? And so I don't know necessarily that it's bad, but it was surprising for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had not watched any of the trailers or commercial. I don't know what you even call them at this point.
Promotional materials.
Right. Yeah, I didn't check any of that. I knew almost nothing about this going in, other than the fact that the main character is probably not Boba Fett. Which I guess still has not been confirmed.
He's not Boba Fett. I've seen so many
Disney has lied to people before.
That's true. If they did, I would be shocked. If he was Boba Fett, then that would be the biggest twist of all time. Well, I mean, except for Darth Vader being Luke's father.
I was gonna say that's a pretty good twist right there.
But it'd be the second biggest twist of all time.
Right. But yeah, no, I was I was impressed by the practical effects, by some of the deaths were my goodness, that one guy in the beginning who gets sliced in half by the closing door. That was amazing. I was like, oh my goodness, okay.
Yeah, and in terms of, and I'm not trying to cut you off here, Tyler, but because there are some good practical effects, but there's also some, I think, not so good CGI effects, including those doors. And I was surprised that they didn't go as soon as I saw the doors open, and then you get Mr. Mandalorian, whatever his name is, who stands there. Then I'm like, it looked so computer generated, and then I'm like, oh, that's weird. Why didn't they use practical effects for that? And then I don't know, a minute later on screen, that it's the dude gets sliced in half by it, and I go, oh, that's why they didn't use practical effects for the door. I'm like, got it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so I was fairly impressed by it. I didn't know how action-packed it was going to be. I didn't really have any expectations for it, so the whole gunfight at the compound was pretty cool. I was surprised that within the first half, within the first 10 minutes, we'd already gone to two different cantinas. Two different bars, and I was like, oh, okay. I guess that makes sense, but it was just kind of, I don't know, awkward to me. It's we've already run out of different kinds of locations. And we started revisiting some of the same kind, but
I was impressed by the worlds that they had in it. I'm glad that it wasn't just really well, they were kind of basic, but not really, because at least with the first one that he's on, where they're standing on the ice and all that, and then that big monster comes out, I was impressed with that, because it's not just something so typical for Star Wars. Even the desert planet or wherever, at least it wasn't just a desert, because there's so many of those already in Star Wars. And so I'm glad that it was more at least just something a little different. Yeah. So
yeah. All right, so I'll give my brief thoughts on it, and then maybe we'll kind of do a little bit of an overview of what happens in this episode.
For sure.
Okay, so I mean, I think everything with Star Wars, and specifically with new Star Wars, then there's a whole bunch of good, and the good that you have is in terms of the mise-en-scène, the overall special effects, the visuals, they're spectacular, costume design, all of that. Just it's really brilliant. It's one of the best looking science fiction shows or movies you're ever going to see. Sound design is incredible. So all of that stuff works. And sound design is really quite good in this. And then so all of that is working, and even with the show, like when it first began, before there was any dialogue, I'm like, wow, this is great. Oh, this looks so spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got dialogue, and then I'm like, now I've got issues with this. As soon as you get into that, and it was just like with like the blue dude in the cantina or whatever he is, and it feels like such a Joss Whedon way of writing. Of here is a crazy looking creature who is clearly not like human, right? Whatever humans are in this Star Wars universe, right? But he's clearly not a human. But then we're going to have him talk so casual. There's going to be no accent. English is clearly his first language. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's such a contrast with the way he looks. And it's like, huh? Pretty funny, right? You were expecting a weird voice out of that thing, but we're not giving it to you. And it's like, it seems like this is like a dress rehearsal and the cameras aren't running. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's not even acting, the blue dude, right? And so just some of the tone with that, it was a little strange. But then just in general, I thought with the episode, one of the things that I appreciated is that I will say this is unlike anything I have seen in Star Wars up until this point. I haven't seen anything else like this where this is not a plot that is moving at a breakneck pace and it is being patient in revealing character. It's being it's trusting that the audience is going to be patient, that they're not saying, here's everything you need to know about this character immediately, here's the entire backstory, and here's the entire, like, introducing the ultimate objective for him. It's that you can see this is just the first little part of this whole big story that we're going to get in this season. Because what's really going on? What's the objective other than, and by the way, people, this is going to be nothing but spoilers, but what's the objective other than getting this, off the books criminal as a bounty where they don't even have the puck for him? And then you find out, oh, it's little baby Yoda. And so it's like, that's clearly not the show.
Yeah.
Like, season 1 is not going to be capture little baby Yoda. There's something much, much bigger. But what is it? We don't know. We are 40 minutes in, and we don't know what this is about. Still, we really don't.
Yeah.
And look at anything else in Star Wars, 40 minutes in, you know what's happening. There's a Death Star. There's another Death Star. There's a different kind of Death Star. Right? You know what I mean? Like, you know that all immediately. You know who the bad guys are. You see the villains immediately. You know who the heroes are. But with this, we're not even entirely sure who's really good, who's really bad, who can we trust, who can we not trust, what's the overall objective and plot. And I actually appreciate that. So I'm like, but that's what I'm saying, that I think a lot of people are going to watch this and they're going to react and they're going to go, bored now. And I appreciate the fact that they're not actually just reducing it to the lowest common denominator. And I am surprised by that. Whether they can reward our patience, I think is a question. But like, I, for one, am a very, very patient viewer. I will wait a very long time, as long as I still trust that it's going to be worth my time.
Yeah.
And I believe that they're going somewhere with this, so they can take their time with it. It's just, like I say, it's really surprising that there's not much in this. Like, I kind of just rewatched it just before we did the podcast. I just kind of skipped through the scenes. There's not very many scenes, but it's 40 minutes of runtime, and there's very few scenes in very few locations. There's not much that happens in this in terms of plot. But a lot of screen time. And you go, that's not Star Wars. Star Wars switches between scenes like that.
Yeah.
And this doesn't do it. Yeah, with all the fights, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, it's interesting. Those are kind of my general thoughts on it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Even I think a great example of expecting patience from the viewer is something that I didn't really pick up on the first time watching it, but at the beginning when he wants a speeder to take him back to his ship, like with the blue dude, then one pulls up and it's really nice and fancy, driven by a droid, and then he's like, no droids, and you're just kind of like, oh, that's weird. Like, why? What does he have against
Mm.
droids? And then when you get to it later, then droids are his opposition, right? Like droid bounty hunters. Um,
Competitors.
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Yeah, not exactly opposition, but competitors for
right,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so then it, like when you look at it that way, then you, oh, okay, well that makes sense now that he would be, I guess, opposed
That's
to.
interesting. Yeah, because I didn't view it that way, that it's just that he
Yeah.
views them as competitors. I just thought that he's kind of more of a Luddite, right? Where he's kind of
Mm.
opposing modern technology to some degree, and he
Oh,
just
okay,
he just doesn't
Yeah.
trust those things.
Yeah, that's what I thought
Um,
it was too.
Yeah, that's how
okay,
I interpret it. Because then when he sees the bounty hunter droid, then he's just like, ah, like droids. Like he just doesn't have,
right.
and I don't
Right.
think it's so much that's my competition. To me, that's how I read it. But you might be right, Tyler. And the thing
Mhm.
is, and this is what I think is actually great about this, we don't know. We don't
Yeah.
know why he feels this way about droids. We
Yeah.
just know that he does. And I'm like, oh, like this is a little bit more, for a little bit more of a mature, patient audience than I
Yeah.
was expecting. I thought
Mhm.
this would insult my intelligence, and it didn't really. So I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, good. What a relief.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't quite know what's going on with him and the droids, but that is an interesting point
Yeah.
that yeah, he doesn't why doesn't he trust it?
Mhm.
Hmm. All right. So I guess do we want to go beat by beat, as it were?
Sure. Sure. Yeah, so
Um,
as far as like the opening sequence, then what is it? It's just like him arriving on that planet.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then he captures the guy and takes him on his ship.
Yeah.
And
I
then
did. I did really like the dialogue there when he puts down the puck.
Hmm.
mhm.
And then the guy is like, "What is that? A bounty puck? Oh, is that me?" And like the guy is like super nervous because clearly
Mhm.
like he he's like never been arrested before, or like he doesn't
Mhm.
know how to react. Like he obviously can't just run away. He just saw this guy murder like four people, but he's just
Right.
like, how can I get out of this? And I thought that
Mhm.
was actually really well done. I think that spoke a lot to uh that blue guy's character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And I
mean, go ahead.
I also liked how little they made the Mandalorian talk, like
Hmm.
in the beginning anyway. Um, and even later on, I still liked it. I thought it worked really well, especially with showing kind of who he is. And so I like that they did that, especially in the beginning.
Me too. And it seems as though, and I mean, I took a quick look at the Wikipedia page, and it's already got it identified as being a space western. Right.
Hmm.
And so having these Western elements, and you do get that he is very much depicted as a gunslinger, right? You get
Yeah.
all of these like the iconography of Westerns where he's got basically the duster coat, right? Like the
Hmm.
long trench
Hmm.
coat, right? Where he's got that. It's not a coat, but it's a cloak, right? And
Yeah.
so that with the pistol at his side, even though it's a laser pistol,
Right.
and you
Hmm.
know busts into the saloon with a bunch of seedy
Yeah.
characters, and I'm the new sheriff in town. I'm gonna get this guy, and don't mess with me, right? And that it's not a um, futuristic battle of like who's the better dueler in terms of swords, right? You don't have that element to it. It's much more
Hmm.
of the Western um, aesthetic that you have throughout the show, and certainly like
Hmm.
that saloon element. And it
Yeah.
also it does a good job, I think, in giving these little homages to other parts of the Star Wars universe that have
Hmm.
kind of been side stories, where you get Han
Hmm.
Solo in a place that's very much like that, with bounty hunters and this whole underground black market that exists within the Star Wars universe. And that in general, and you kind of do get this like going into like the next real, I guess it's like the third scene that you have, where he meets with Carl Weathers,
Right.
Apollo Creed.
Yeah.
And so, who looks incredible, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, he's got to be dyeing his hair because that dude looks like basically the same way he looked in like Rocky 3. But anyway, he looks terrific. And so you've got Carl Weathers there, and like the whole discussion over currency and like what kind of denomination, like what kind of currency they're going to be using. And it's like, oh, we don't want to use these imperial credits. Like,
Right.
even though it's like, oh, they're still accepted. And you're like, okay, that kind of gives us a sense of what's going on, that things are in flux. There's not that you're not under the empire anymore, but there's not really anything else that's really stepped up in its place at this point. And what happens whenever there's a power vacuum like that is you get all of the black market, the criminal underground that just flourishes under that kind of an environment, right? So it does a good job, and that's basically what the Wild West is when we're talking about the frontier. It's that it was just impossible for the United States, the federal government, to be able to in any way maintain authority across the vast, vast, vast wilderness of the Western territories in the United States. And so it was just a wild place where criminals were able to flourish. And you had to have these strong guys who would just step up and just say, I'm going to be the gunslinger, the sheriff in town, and I'm going to maintain order in this particular place and hopefully push off these criminal elements elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting thing. And obviously the bounty hunter thing, like that's a old Western trope.
Right. Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't really have much else to say about that, the first scene.
Yeah.
No, there's very little dialogue. I did notice, like, when I was kind of rewatching it, that like that big dude says, "You spilled my drink," and I watched him like he didn't spill his drink.
Yeah.
That wasn't.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, because I wasn't really paying attention the first time, and then the second time I'm like, did he actually spill his drink? I'm like, no, he didn't. This guy's blaming him. Like, he should die for that comment.
Yeah, I know. I was confused at first because I was like, wait, he wasn't even in the room when his drink was spilled. Like, was it the wind from the door or something? Like,
that just says everything we need to know about this guy. Do you know how many students I've taught like that? They just make stuff up.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So basically, yeah, that brings us all the way up until he's like, he talks to Carl Weathers. He's like, hey, I need something. And then he's like, well, I don't have a puck, but there's this whole underground thing that's kind of off the books, right?
Yeah.
Where
Actually, before we get there, I wanted to mention that this Mandalorian, this bounty hunter, puts apparently all of his captures in carbonite, which I found very interesting because in episode 5, then it's something where they didn't know if Han Solo would survive.
Yeah, I thought that was surprising as well. And I don't know what to make of that because
Boba Fett. Boba Fett's the only one who knew.
Well, also, there are more parallels to Boba Fett because the gun that the Mandalorian uses, like the big rifle, is the same one used by Boba Fett in Star Wars: The Holiday Special, which is just just absolutely hated by people. And that's not the only reference to it, because
I was going to say, the guy Life Day, and this is this is actually being brought up.
Yeah, I couldn't believe when he said Life Day. I was like, wait, does that mean the whole holiday special actually is like canon? Because that is really weird because no one likes that, and if they're canonizing that, then that's just a very weird choice. Why would you canonize something that everybody hates? So anyway, so
on that note, this is also listed on Disney Plus as the first live-action Star Wars series, which I guess we're just ignoring the Ewok show, right?
Yeah.
There's a show like about Ewoks, isn't there?
I think, well, it might be a movie, actually. I'm not 100%
Yeah, I
sure.
thought that it was a movie, but I don't know.
I'm pretty sure there's actually two.
There's multiple, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think those are movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but yeah, the carbonite thing is interesting.
Yeah.
But like, it seems like at least the way I'm reading it so far is just that Boba Fett is a Mandalorian. He's just part of this race, and they've got this very specific sartorial style, right? Their clothing, like they've got their
Yeah.
outfits and their helmets, and it's just like this is our look.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm
Am
not
I
sure
right?
if the carbonite has anything to do with them being Mandalorian because Dave Filoni, who actually directed this, he was like the head creative of the Clone Wars TV show, the animated one, and well, the second one, and so he did a lot of expanding on who the Mandalorians are in that show, and so there's nothing really talked about carbonite or anything with them in that. So I am still, yeah, I'm not really sure why he uses carbonite because it doesn't seem like there's any specific reason, unless I guess it's just easier for him to take people like that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to worry about them escaping. You don't have to worry about
Yeah.
feeding them, keeping them warm, or anything. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
or
then,
them
like,
evacuating while on your ship, which
yeah,
I did
right.
not need that whole discussion.
then like,
It's never been
yeah.
in Star Wars before, and I'm
Oh,
just like, I don't really want to hear
I'm
about
telling
how
you, this
aliens
is like such
evacuate.
Joss Whedon type of writing. It
Well,
really is. Of
yeah.
like, hey, let's just have that like just really silly, like suddenly we're on an episode of Friends, and now we're back to the serious stuff. I
Yeah.
hate
Yeah.
that.
I think
Yeah.
part of that is a little bit Dave Filoni because this is the first time he's directing something live action, so he's more used to the Star Wars Rebels and Star Wars The Clone Wars. So like I think a lot of that more silly stuff is just him trying to like kind of doing that, um but maybe I'm wrong on that. So it's really interesting. Also, this is just a side note. Why didn't like I'm not really sure if there's an answer, but why didn't Jon Favreau direct the first episode? He wrote the whole
It's a
series. I
great
don't know
question.
why he didn't direct it.
That's a great question.
Like,
Yeah.
so
No, I'm
anyway.
right there with you. It is really, really surprising. In
Yeah.
part because I just did a a podcast on Twin Peaks. Then David Lynch, who's the co-creator and you know, writer and director and like done a whole bunch of stuff with it, but
Mhm.
he directed the first couple episodes and then the last couple episodes of each
Mm.
season. And then he
Yeah.
specifically he handpicked other directors to direct other episodes within that season, but he's
Mhm.
taking the most significant ones and he's saying, I'm doing those. And so you would
Yeah.
really expect that Favreau would do the same thing because you're
Yeah,
setting
like
the entire tone for the
especially
season with
because like
episode one.
yeah, and like especially because it's not like he doesn't have experience. I mean, he's directed so many things like
Yeah.
and so it's just like I'm not sure why he decided not to. Like
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
I know it is a very surprising change from the norm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the tone was pretty well established, but like I said, I did not like that character, like
Yeah.
the blue dude. I just thought it was too silly for the tone that they're trying to set with. It doesn't fit with much of the episode.
Yeah.
Everything else is straight faced except for him.
Mhm.
And I don't
Yeah.
know why you have that silliness so early that
Yeah.
it's trying to be a pretty intense show, and then as soon as
Mhm.
you have dialogue, then it ends up being this like I don't know, kind of like
I,
silly
I
dude.
I feel like part of it is that that character does not fit into this world, and they wanted to establish that that type of character does not fit in this world, if
Mm,
that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like the
Yeah.
whole premise is that we're in this different world within the Star Wars universe, right?
yeah.
Of bounty
Okay.
Mhm.
hunters and everything, and so then there, it is a very striking juxtaposition there. But I mean, like even when he opens up the the cache on board the ship, then like he looks at all the different weapons and then he just closes it right back up because
Yeah.
clearly he's not a fighter, right? Like he
Mhm.
is this nervous, person who does not know how to act in these situations. And so it is interesting
Yeah.
that they put it there, but I do wonder if it's to specifically call out that that sort of character just is not a regular in this world.
You're right. He looks like the kind of dude who works in a cubicle. And then
Right.
and then he like did some kind of insider trading or something like that.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
now
Well,
he's
yeah, I mean,
yeah, like
they
white
even
collar crime.
right. Yeah, Carl Weathers, I don't know his character's name, but he even mentions that like most of them are just what was it? Like not tax evasion, but like something like that where it was like really minor
Yeah,
crimes
I
and
don't.
that's what all the bounties were for.
Hmm.
Um
Right.
Mm.
Yeah,
so
I guess that's what it is. Yeah,
yeah.
I thought that it was just that there's not a lot of people paying anymore for bounties, but
Mm, yeah,
for putting a bounty on somebody's head because of the fall of the empire, then they're just
right.
there isn't that big organization that's able to pay for it. But you might be right though that yeah, I don't know. That maybe they're just it's all low level criminals that they're going after. Um, then in any case, he goes and he talks to that like really creepy dude who's like got his crew
Yeah.
of very dirty stormtroopers.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
somebody like get like a washcloth, guys. Come on, like you're a mess. Like they would never pass any kind of armor inspection on any kind of Imperial cruiser. Like just
Right.
I was embarrassed for them. But yeah, so he's got his crew of dirty stormtroopers, and he's just like, yes, oh, I've got this, and it's like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
But okay,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that I've heard that actor before. I don't know if I've ever seen the actor, but like
Yeah.
he's fairly prolific, and so like it just stood out to me as like, oh yeah, it's that guy.
yeah, and it's fine having that guy on here.
Yeah.
It's just that like I say, there is the expectation that audiences are going to be pretty patient because you don't have a lot of dialogue, and then when you do, it takes a while for him to spit it out because he's talking pretty slowly, and then you finally get to this like ultimately to the plot point, which is I don't have a bounty disc for you, but I've got a fob which will track the thing, and I want you to capture him alive. But hey, it's okay if he's dead, right?
Right.
And that it's like this 50-year-old, I don't know what. But does he say anything aside from that? Does he say,
I don't think
I
so.
don't think so.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like I don't even know who he is, like who's paying for this now that the
I don't
Empire's not around.
I don't know if a single name is spoken throughout this entire episode.
Yeah, you might be right.
That's yeah.
I'm just thinking about it. I'm like, that's like a really strange choice, but okay.
I love this though, like and
Yeah.
personally because I like inventive and daring and even to some degree not even so much experimental but unconventional storytelling.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
because conventional storytelling I feel like it just hits you over the head of like I can just hear basically what you get with like pitch meeting like from Screen Rant of
Right.
like I
Yeah.
can just hear an executive, a producer talking to a screenwriter, and I can hear the feedback that they get from a focus group, and they're like, "Oh, we don't know who this character is. Oh, better say his name. Can we do that in the most awkward way possible? Absolutely, right? Like that's so much of like a well-crafted script with all the beats in place. Then I'm just like, it feels like paint by numbers. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, yeah, that painting looks like every other painting I've ever seen. Actually do something different. You can tell a narrative in a different way. And the fact that they don't really give us characters, I think is great. It's that
Mhm.
we're not going to be disoriented. We're not going to say, like, I don't know what's happening because I don't have a character name. We're just like,
Mhm.
oh, mid level bounty hunter manager referred him to upper level bounty hunter manager who's got these like dirty star, like stormtrooper guys. And then, like, our Mandalorian bounty hunter dude goes and talks to some armory woman who's also a Mandalorian who crafts him
Mhm.
Right.
something out of what you thought was like I don't know, a series of credit cards fused together, and then she melts it down and turns it into a shoulder pad. I don't know.
Yeah, I believe my understanding of that was that it's some type of metal, I guess from Mandalore,
I guess
and
so.
so like very like very strong metal from that
Yeah.
is
Is he
associated with the
slowly
Mandalorians.
replacing all parts of his armor with this stuff?
Seems like it.
Like that's
Which,
kind of my impression too, because they ask him. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if they're talking about his helmet or if they're talking about his chest plate. But remember, like the first scene, that they're like, "Is that whatever steel?" And then he like
oh yeah,
scratches it, and I'm like,
Mhm.
"Well, but aren't you interested in the helmet? Because the helmet's the same color as what that shoulder piece of
Right.
armor ends up
yeah,
looking like." So
Yeah.
it seems like he's like, basically in a video game, he's leveling up one little like piece at a time.
Yes.
He's just getting different upgrades.
Yes.
That
yeah.
yeah.
Um,
But like I
also,
say, we don't have character names, but we're able to follow this. And
yeah,
Yes.
it's like,
Absolutely.
yeah, you can do different things in a screenplay, and
yeah,
we can follow. It's okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing with that I liked is that he never takes his helmet off, because usually with someone who's like, "Oh, I never take my helmet off," then they find some reason to,
Yes.
because the actor probably wants to be seen. Then
Right.
it's like, I need my helmet off, so that way they finally take it off, and then it's like he just never puts it back on. But I like that they kept it where he doesn't actually take the helmet off, because then it's like, we like, at least you're going with it, and you're not just being like, "Oh yeah, I never take my helmet off." First scene, takes the helmet off and then never wears it
Right.
again. Like, so I was glad that they did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I am curious if that actually is a real thing, because even, the blue guy asks, "Is it true that you guys never
Mhm.
take your helmets off?"
Yeah,
And so I'm like, well, maybe that's just, the myth about them. Uh,
which it would make sense, because like in the TV show, like they do, like in the Clone Wars TV show, then there is their leader who does take his helmet off like all
hmm,
the time, but that was also more of a like political thing, because, but anyway, so
okay. Yeah.
I won't spend too much time explaining that, because
Right. But
Yeah.
but so maybe
I would
um
just say, if they actually have had their helmets on for any extensive period of time, months, years, and I'm in the room, I'm not asking that person to take it off.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Whatever funky odor you've got going on in there, keep it
yeah,
locked in. Please do not release that into the atmosphere. I don't
Yes.
want to be there. My curiosity of what you look like is not anything close to my desire to not have that go up my nostrils. Like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it
Oh
is
man.
interesting. And, like, I mean, I would say, I don't think it's going out on much of a limb, but the helmet's coming off at some
yeah.
point. Like, it's a question of how long they're going to feature our protagonist on screen without actually seeing his face.
I
It's
don't
kind
have a
of like,
long time.
yeah, I would be good with that as well. Because
Mhm.
even with Darth Vader, then it was a pretty long time
Yeah.
before, like, as far as screen time, and certainly in terms of like the movies and when they were released, of when you first see him until you ultimately see his face.
Yeah.
Because you get
Yeah.
that little teaser in, what is it,
Mhm.
Empire, where you get kind of the back
Yeah.
of his head, but that's
Yeah.
all that you get. And then
Mhm.
it's not until Return of the Jedi that you actually see
At the
at the
very
very,
end
very
too.
end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
like that ends up being something like 6 hours of screen time,
Mhm.
Yeah.
before we see him. So we'll see
Yeah.
if this passes the 6 hour mark,
Right.
because I think that's
Does
the
this
that's the record
season
right
even
now.
pass the 6 hour
I don't
mark?
know.
That's a good question. That would be interesting. The last
Uh,
episode of season 1 gets the 6 hour
right.
mark, and then they take it off.
Um,
Uh,
we should move on to the next scene.
Yes.
I have spoken.
Yeah. All right. I was a little I guess a little disappointed in our Mandalorian for being attacked by that creature so
Oh,
quickly.
mm,
I'm just
yeah.
like, They just talked about how good you are, and then immediately you get attacked like out of nowhere.
Yeah, and then there was also that other one that's like staring him down, and it's about to go after him after the other one's on the ground. He's got
Yeah.
he's got a handgun in his holster. Like, why doesn't he just take that out and shoot it? Like, is he against killing animals? Like,
Unclear.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was strange, and it just seemed like I thought that was aside from like some of the stuff with the blue guy. And Tyler, you did kind of justify the way his character is depicted on screen, so I'm kind of coming around on that. But aside from that, I thought this is like the weakest part of the episode, where you get him learning how to ride one of these dinosaur type creatures,
Yeah.
and it's just like it's very much a Western, right? In the
Yeah.
sense of you need to have a horse. And
yeah,
you know, it needs to be the gunslinger rides, you know, alone into like the desert on his horse, you know, with his like rifle, and he's got the pistol at his side and all of that to go in and fight like against the big obstacles of all these villains, right? So like they have to have that. They're trying to invoke that iconography of Westerns, but at the same time, I'm just like, are we really gonna watch this dude learn how to like ride a dinosaur? Really? Like,
yeah.
and it's like that's the only way to travel there, and I'm like, surely there's other ways to travel there.
Yeah,
How
like
about a
I don't get.
jetpack?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't
We've
really
seen
get.
Mandalorians with jetpacks before.
Right. And
Like,
why couldn't that dude wrangle two of these things on his own? He's like,
Yeah.
I needed you to capture those two. And it's like, he did nothing. You are the one who saved him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
He
looked like he
didn't
did
help
it
at all.
very easy. Like
Yeah.
there was no struggle to getting them. He just like shot them with those like stunning things, and then he had them. Like,
Yeah. How was another person necessary to do that?
yeah,
And then once you have them in a pen, and then you like, oh, you get the lovely Chris Pratt Jurassic World. Let me just touch your little nose, and now you're tame. And,
Yeah.
and now I can ride you. That was like, all right, I guess he's riding a fat raptor. I don't know.
Yeah, it was at that point though that we got the quick flashes. Yes.
Yes.
What is it?
Yes, I think it was right around then.
of his past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was when he was getting the armor on, like the new shoulder
Oh.
pad, and she was like
Oh, okay.
making it, and like every time there like she hit the metal, then he had like a flashback to a gunshot or an explosion.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was interesting. He is a foundling. And
Yeah.
yeah, I like that they're just kind of hinting at his past.
Yeah.
I'm torn because I feel like maybe we didn't actually need those flashes. You know, like maybe we could have just done with
Yeah.
with the dialogue there. But I do think that they are effective, and we're clearly going to see more of those.
Yeah.
Or extended versions of them within this
Yeah.
series.
And it was like just all of it was like so interesting for all that, because like even just like the like that underground place with like all of the Mandalorians there was like really intriguing, because like I'm just curious as what's going on with the Mandalorians right now. Like why are they all like in this underground like spot? Like so
Yeah.
I'm just like really interested to see what they're doing with that, and like how that's going to play into all of Mandalore's backstory.
It's probably 50-year-old Yoda creatures who have massacred the Mandalorian people and had to go into hiding against these little baby Yodas. I think that's what it is. Because, like,
and that's
yeah.
it's so great because it's mirroring what Yoda did. You know how he was going into hiding, except for it's the reverse now.
There you go. There you go. Working on multiple levels. But I did think in terms of getting into his past, it fits really well with some of the thematic interests of characters in Star Wars, because it's very much a Han Solo type of background. It's also similar to Anakin's background of these, you know, like there's tragedy in your past, and you come from a fairly oppressed background and childhood and just a lot of poverty, and then rising up out of that in this very, very difficult universe to survive in. Right. And so it's kind of cool because it fits with what Star Wars thematically has been interested in. So that works. And so then, he gets to the compound of how was it even described? As a quarry, I think is how they describe it. That dude.
I don't remember.
I don't know. Just these dudes showed up and they ruined the planet. And you're like, clearly this was like a thriving metropolis before, and now it's a barren wasteland. It's like, what do you mean ruined it? There was nothing there except for you and these dinosaur creatures. They ruined the neighborhood? What neighborhood?
Yeah, I know. You have to travel so far to get to them, and you can't take a speeder. So,
right. He's like, every time I travel for hours and hours and hours into their territory, I am not happy.
Yes. Yeah. That old guy, I just I love practical effects. I love the use of them, but his lips just did not move well, and I'm just like, this is awkward. I'm sorry. I don't know. It stood out to me.
I'd rather have that than CGI. But that's just me. But you are right. No, it doesn't look like he's actually really talking. He's not pronouncing stuff wrong. Totally. I know. I don't know what they can do, because you've got to get the lips that kind of come in and then out and in, and not just a flap. But so he goes there, and then he's immediately like, oh no, there's that beanpole of a droid that is this is a very strange looking droid, right? It just kind of looks like
he's similar to I believe IG-88, who is another bounty hunter who is shown in Empire Strikes Back. So clearly the same model, I guess, of droid. I don't think it's the same one.
Right.
No, it's not. This one's IG-11, which...
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He looks like a hat rack. That's all.
His limbs look so skinny.
He's just put your hats on me.
How are you so intimidating to these people, as a bounty hunter or whatever, yet you're just you're so you look like you could fall apart if you trip and fall on a rock or something.
But I loved the fact that this droid, and I think it pairs really well with whatever her name is from Solo, of this droid, he just wants to kill himself. He is looking for any excuse to self-destruct. The amount of times it's just one little thing went wrong and it's, I will self-destruct. And then it's you can see that the Mandalorian dude, because when he says it when they're pressed up against each other, that it's I will self-destruct, and it's just you will not, you self-destruct right there. What do you think is gonna happen? So, but I don't know what's up with this droid, but he needs to see a therapist.
Right.
Maybe he needs medication. I don't know.
Yeah. Capture is imminent. What do you mean? They're all the way over there.
He gives up so easily. I'm telling you, he just wants to self-destruct. So one issue that I have with this scene is, what is up with the laser guns in the Star Wars universe? These things, okay, so you get this massive laser, I don't know, hoverboard thing, right? This laser cannon hoverboard thing, and then it's just oh no, and they're behind this stone pillar, and then it's just and they're just shooting and shooting and shooting. And it does nothing. It does no damage to the pillar. I don't understand. I feel if you took any of our conventional weapons, from, let's say, the U.S. military, you send in a team of Marines, they could destroy any of these laser gun toting people in the Star Wars universe, because we've got tons of stuff that would have taken out that column like that. And how come these laser things do nothing to physical structures? Anyway, that's just
they broke down the door.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
right. And they use that thing and this steel door, and they just like that stone column that's been there for like 1,000 years. It can't take out a little bit of stone. You see it like knocks off a little bits of it, and it looked like it was made out of chalk. I'm like, how can it not move through that? And like they're like, we're perfectly fine behind there. Why don't they just make all doors out of that stone then? Like, I don't get it. But and when the Mandalorian dude does jump on the laser cannon hoverboard thing, like somebody's got to put that to different music, because that looked like the silliest thing in the world. Like some kind of like, I don't know, romantic music. He looked like he was at some kind of hoedown with some country bumpkin, and he's just like, like you and me, and like they're doing like the do-si-do and they're spinning around or whatever. It didn't look very tough. I wasn't like, whoa, what a badass. I'm like, he just looks like he's at a carnival.
Yeah. That whole scene it reminded me so much of a video game, where it's just like, oh, we have to get through the door, oh, there's endless amounts of enemies who keep spawning, and
they just keep spawning.
Yeah.
And then once he gets on this thing, because they can't take them out, but then once he gets on this thing, he does like 1 or 2 loops, and he perfectly hit all of them. Perfectly. Like, he's got this like killing machine droid that's got cameras everywhere and can spin and can do all of this, guns coming out everywhere, and that thing can't hit everything. But give him one little loop on this thing. Everybody, except when the other dudes have that cannon thing pointed at them, they can't hit them for like a minute of shooting.
Yeah, even when they're out in the open covering fire, like, and the dude is standing there trying to open the door for like a minute, and they can't hit him.
Why didn't the guy with the cannon just move over here and boom?
Whatever species they are, that needs to be the new stormtrooper aim.
Stormtrooper aim. It really is.
Oh my goodness. And like, why is it that when they finally get in, there's no one inside? Like, there's one guy. Like,
right.
Why are you? Everyone. Okay, there's 2 guys outside. Everyone go outside and attack them. You send everybody who's in here. Like, what?
Abandon the most precious asset that we have, apparently, which is little baby Yoda in eggshell.
Right.
Like.
Yes. Yeah, so let's talk about that.
Sure. I'm just going with it. I'm trusting what they're saying. Criminal baby Yoda, the true villain of this series, 50-year-old criminal baby. If there is a bounty on this baby Yoda must be awful, must be evil, right? That's how we're supposed to interpret this.
Yeah. It is interesting because I believe we've only seen one other than Yoda, then we've only seen one other one of his species, which was a female one who's also in the Jedi Council.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Being just like in the background in episode 1, right?
Yeah.
And my mind immediately is trying to do the math. How long ago was that? Was that 50 years ago? You're like, this is totally Yoda's love child right here.
That's right. You're like Michael from The Office when he like sees like Karen is pregnant and he's just like, I'm just trying to do the math of when like you and Jim at last had sex to figure this out. It's like that's what Tyler's doing as he's watching The Mandalorian. Wait a minute, all the numbers in his head.
We've only seen 2 others of the species.
No, you're right. That's a fair point, and I think you're probably right that we're pretty close to 50 years. Like, and I mean, even if it's not 50, like it could have been like 10 years before episode 1. Then that's when Yoda had his love child with Mrs. Yoda.
Right.
Yeah, and well, that would make sense as to why this baby Yoda is so dangerous and why everyone wants him. Like, then that I could see that being a reason if they wanted to go with that, but it'd be a very weird reason if you're like, oh yeah, remember Yoda? Well, 50 years ago, he had a kid with some other Jedi Council member, but then like, isn't one of the rules for Jedi that you can't do that? Like, and he's the head council member.
Naughty Yoda.
Wow, like he should. Wow, they should have changed is in charge.
This is
Yeah.
his like bastard love child.
Wow. That's why there's no disc. They're ashamed of showing who this new young Yoda is.
Right. Can you imagine the conversation that the Yoda people have to have though when they're going to have a baby? And it's like, I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of commitment. I mean, it's going to be a minimum of 100 years of nursing. Like this thing's 50 years old and it's still an infant.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, now I'm even just I'm imagining the conversations of the way that Yoda speaks, right?
Yeah, like pregnant you will be.
Right.
Love child we will have.
Especially when,
Secret
like-
must be kept.
Especially for like the kid though, because like, you know, if a human is like, how old are your parents? And you're like, well, they're about like 400, and then you'd be like, what? Like
Downright biblical.
Right.
Very Genesis of you. Yeah, I don't even know what to do with this. Like, you're like,
Yeah.
all right. So, because like seriously, this is why I'm saying that it's an interesting narrative that we get for a first episode in, and I like the fact that we're getting like, because at first I was so excited and exuberant with having on-demand streaming services where you get all of the episodes in a season released at once, because then you get to do this binge viewing and it changes the way you write stories. It changes the way you write television. And now it's like we've had so much of that. It's kind of fun to go back to, now we're going to have to wait a little bit. So we all collectively have to pause and say, all right, where are we at the end of this episode? Because if there was all of the episodes available, we would not be talking about like where do things stand at the end of episode 1. We would just move right on to episode 2 within 5 seconds, literally. And so this whole thing of, if you look at what you have within this episode, you get to the end of it and it's like, all right, so he's captured clearly this innocent little baby that, you know, like why on earth would there be a bounty on this thing that seems helpless and harmless? So what's he gonna do? And ultimately, like, where is this going? And like, we don't have answers to those questions at all. We don't know who the villains are. We don't know what the big obstacle or objective is for any of the characters, including our protagonist. It's just like, oh, okay. So like, what's he going to do? Is he going to take this thing back to creepy old dude with dirty stormtroopers and then just say, here's that bounty, give me my money, or give me my whatever, like my whole crate of stuff so I can level up all of my armor?
Yeah.
Or is he gonna, I don't know, but go on the run?
Another question I have is, was the droid so insistent on killing him? Because like,
clearly he got some, like, he got different orders.
because the bounty hunter was told, oh well, actually he was told bring him in dead or alive, but then when he said alive, then the one guy was like, well, that's not what we were told, like, why are you saying alive? And he's just like, nah, I don't really care, like.
No, I think it went the other way. It went the other way. He's like, but I understand that bounty hunting is a dangerous, you know, profession or whatever. And so he's like, so I understand that sometimes it doesn't work that way, and I'll accept it if you bring it in dead, but for less money, right? Which is how a bounty works.
Yeah, so I do think that the droid was, you know, hired by a different group altogether.
Oh, okay.
With different motives.
Which is interesting because, like, there's a whole bounty hunters guild, so, like...
Right.
Like, wouldn't they be a part of that? I guess, maybe? But, like, then again, was Boba Fett and all them a part of the bounty hunters guild? So...
Well... Yeah, but I mean, like, anybody can hire somebody in the guild, right? Yeah. So it could have been, you know, anybody, like any other group who hired the droid.
I know. It's that we don't even know who it is, why they want to do this. It certainly seems like this Mandalorian character, he's going to be stuck in this position of what do I do? Because he does seem to have some sense of ethics, right? He's
Yeah.
not just like, he doesn't just randomly kill the blue dude. He's capturing
Yeah.
people, he's capturing them alive. And even when he is offered more money, far more money from that blue dude at the very beginning, like the thing that we learn about his character is that no, he's like hired to do a job. And even though he's doing the job for the money, he's not willing to betray the people who hired him in order to get more money. Right.
Yeah.
That it's like, so he is, even though he's working in this kind of seamy profession, he still has got his own sense of ethics. And so it sure doesn't seem like he's going to easily be willing to just give up this infant, right? He's at least going to wrestle with this question.
Yeah. One other note that I really want to say is just that he never confirms that he is actually Mandalorian.
Okay.
People like ask him or, say like, oh, hey, Mando, and, like whatever, which I don't know if that's supposed to be a slur or what.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's he doesn't actually confirm it at any point. And I believe Luke, wasn't it, that Jango Fett and thus Boba Fett were not actually Mandalorian?
I believe so, but I'm not entirely sure. I think so.
I'm telling you, this is Boba Fett.
Well, and with him, that's like, they also did mention that he was like, what they say earlier in the show, like that, or earlier in the episode, that he wasn't, like, that he was just brought in to them.
That he was a foundling, yeah.
Yeah, a foundling. So like, I'm thinking that means that he just isn't actually Mandalorian. They just found him and were like, "Come join us," because like, really,
that's what I'm thinking.
Well, hang on. Can you guys explain to me? I'm confused. Where is this taking place in the timeline? In terms of
after Return of the Jedi. I think 5 years after Return of the Jedi.
Okay, so if it's after Return of the Jedi, then is Boba Fett not dead by this point?
Dead. I'm telling you, he's not Boba Fett. But
Boba Fett may or may not be dead
because he fell in the Sarlacc pit, right?
I would say there's about,
but he's got
90% chance he's dead.
Didn't he still have the blaster pack on?
Yeah.
Pack, but
I think it was a little damaged, but basically Lucasfilm head honchos have said that Boba Fett is a Schrodinger's cat at the moment. He is both alive and dead until they decide what they want to do with him. So he could have survived the Sarlacc pit, or he could just be dead, and it totally depends on whether or not they want to use him again.
Okay.
Also, the flashbacks, I was going to say the flashbacks, I feel like, show that he's not Boba Fett, but we don't know the history of Jango Fett, and he's a clone of him, so wouldn't his memories be Jango Fett's? Anyway, well, actually, I guess that doesn't really make sense. But anyway, that's not important.
I don't actually think that he's Boba Fett. I just really want to keep believing it.
Right.
Just keep hammering this home, and on the extremely unlikely chance that I'm right, that I look like a genius.
That's like me with my evil Baby Yoda.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sticking to that one.
I'm the one guy who's not coming up with big conspiracies here.
Save that for episode 2.
Right.
That's right. I just gotta wait until I find a really good conspiracy.
That's right.
So hopefully The Mandalorian follows the pattern of the Skywalker saga, and episode 2 is better than episode 1, and episode 3 is better than episode 2, and so on.
Unless they're the prequels. Then episode 2, in my opinion, is worse than episode 1, and then episode 3 is much better. But, yeah.
Wait, you like Attack of the Clones better than The Phantom Menace?
No, I don't. Wait. No, I don't like it more than The Phantom Menace. That's why it's like, well, the second episode I hope is not worse than the first episode. I hope it's much better. Because, yeah. What?
Yeah, anyway, so I do hope that it follows the same pattern in quality as numbered Star Wars films, and that we see these kind of progressively get better
Yeah, it's interesting because with television, a season typically does not do that, right?
I know.
Yeah.
It does this, and then you get that lull in the middle in terms of quality. Then the best episodes tend to be the first one or two episodes, the season premiere, and then the season finale. And now you get different shows like, things that like The Walking Dead, where you get like the mid-season finale, the mid-season premiere. So then it kind of does that twice, where it's like good and then a dip and then good and then good and then a dip and then good. That's kind of what I'm expecting. That we're gonna get. I mean, I hope that we don't have any awful episodes in here.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that Disney is trying to do something different with this. That they are trying to break that model.
I also think, like, Jon Favreau, I have a lot of faith in him, so I think that it's going to turn out to be a pretty good show. But again, he's not directing, so really, who knows?
Right.
Is he directing any episodes?
I don't believe so.
Oh.
But I think he's going to direct episodes in season 2. If I don't know if that's what I heard, but
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, Taika Waititi is directing one of them,
And he was a voice in this one, right?
Yeah, he played the droid,
Yeah.
the bounty hunting droid. So
Yeah. It's fun.
there's actually quite a lot of big names who are directing. I don't know the full list, but it's really interesting. So
we'll get to them as the episodes come up, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think there is reason to believe that this is going to not follow the standard pattern, because this is not a conventional series premiere. It's really not. So it's like, well, I'm encouraged by that.
Yeah.
Even if it's not necessarily like what people want, but I'm like, it's not bad. It's just well, that was unexpected. And so, because it's not like there's a lot of bad, it's just there's not a lot of really anything other than just establishing tone. Like you get the tone's pretty well established, which is important in a debut.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. All right, so I guess we're pretty much finished then. We'll move on to episode 2 on, hopefully we can record on Friday. We'll figure that out after we finish recording this, but we'll release that either Friday or Saturday. And then you can look out for the episode reviews, each week after that. And if you enjoyed this, then feel free to, like and subscribe and follow along with us as we do this, and
share it.
And share it. That's a big one. Yeah, if you can. And then certainly comment below any questions that you have, any feedback. And yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
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 Ignore the bell, people. We're gonna keep going. We're still ignoring it. Don't worry. I don't know what that. I think that's the fire drill. All right. We're gonna go home. Yeah. All right. We're done.